Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're diving into something pretty radical, actually.
hmm
What if the psychological symptoms that feel, really stuck, things like chronic anxiety or that deep shame, maybe even PTSD?
Yeah, the really stubborn stuff.
Exactly. What if you could actually eliminate them permanently? Not just cope, but unlearn them.
Unlearn the pain at its root. It sounds almost too good to be true, doesn't it?
It really does. But that's what we're exploring today.
Indeed. Our mission here is to unpack, a groundbreaking brain process. It's called memory reconsolidation.
Okay.
And this isn't just some new therapy fad. It's a fundamental, natural way our brains work that's really reshaping how we think about psychotherapy.
So we're going to look at how it works, why it's seen as such a game changer,
Yeah.
and how different therapies are actually using it to get these lasting results.
That's the plan. By the end of this deep dive, you should have a really clear picture of how the brain can literally, rewrite painful emotional memories.
Rewrite them. Okay, let's get into it. What is memory reconsolidation?
So at its core, it's the brain's own natural way of unstoring a memory that's been reactivated.
Unstoring it.
Yeah, like opening up the file cabinet and then updating that memory with new information. Think of it like your brain's built-in editor.
An editor for emotional memory.
Exactly. It rewires the emotional learning right down at the synapse level.
Yep.
So like you said, it's not just coping. It can permanently get rid of symptoms by transforming those maladaptive emotional memories, erasing them, in effect.
Transforming them at the root, not just managing the fallout. That feels huge.
It is huge.
And a lot of this understanding comes from Bruce Ecker's work, unlocking the emotional brain.
That's right. He's been a real pioneer. And especially since around 2020, the research has just exploded, really confirming his model and showing how it boosts therapy effectiveness across the board.
So it points to a way for symptoms to just vanish without constant effort to keep them down.
That's the promise. And Ecker's model lays out 3 really specific steps, a sequence that needs to happen.
Okay, what are they?
First step is reactivation. You have to bring that old, stuck emotional memory back.
The painful one.
Yes, and not just think about it, but bring it into vivid conscious awareness. The core beliefs, too, like I'm unsafe or I'm unlovable. You need to feel it alive, right here, right now.
So just talking about the memory isn't enough. You need that felt sense. Why is that so critical?
Because the emotional brain learns through experience. Pure logic doesn't cut it for these deep patterns. If you don't really activate that old emotional blueprint, it just stays dormant.
Okay, so you feel the old pain again. It's active. What then?
Once it's activated or unlocked, the memory enters this
Yeah.
labile state. It becomes changeable, like wet cement, for a short time.
Flexible, vulnerable to change.
Exactly. And then comes the critical part, the mismatching experience. While that old memory is unlocked and active, you introduce something new, something contradictory, something that starkly disconfirms the old expectation.
Okay. So if the old memory screams danger and rejection, the mismatch is experiencing safety and acceptance right then.
Precisely. Your brain expects the old pattern, but gets something totally different. That surprise, that prediction error, that's the catalyst. It literally signals the brain, hey, this old map is wrong. Time to update.
Wait, this isn't how it's supposed to go. Moment.
That's the magic, yeah. And then the third step is repetition and integration.
Okay.
You repeat or revisit that new contradictory experience while the old memory is still accessible. So the brain connects the dots.
And it literally rewrites the neural pathway, updates the blueprint.
It updates the neural schema, yes. After this happens properly, the original trigger just doesn't fire off the old distress anymore. And that old belief, like I'm unlovable, it starts to feel, kind of unreal or even silly.
That sense of unreality, that's the key sign it worked, isn't it? It's not suppression.
Exactly. It's fundamentally different. It means the brain has actually rewritten that memory.
So successful reconsolidation means the symptom just stops completely.
Full cessation, yeah. The old pattern doesn't get reactivated even in situations that used to trigger it. And there's this feeling of effortless freedom, like the burden just vanished.
Well, okay. And that leads into some of the recent discoveries you mentioned from 2020 onwards.
Right. It's been a really exciting period. Bruce Ecker and his colleagues have proposed something quite bold.
Which is?
That memory reconsolidation isn't just one-way healing happens. They argue it's the common underlying neurobiological basis for deep, lasting change across many different kinds of therapy.
Whoa, okay. So it's like a unifying theory for emotional healing.
Pretty much. It suggests that no matter the specific techniques a therapist uses, whether it's CBT, psychodynamic, experiential, if they're achieving deep, permanent change, they are, knowingly or unknowingly, facilitating this memory updating process.
So it's not about finding the one right therapy, but understanding the core mechanism that makes any therapy truly transformative.
That's the idea. The second edition of Unlocking the Emotional Brain from 2024 actually lays out 26 case studies.
Yeah.
Depression, panic, compulsions, PTSD, all showing decisive resolution when therapy explicitly targeted reconsolidation.
So the techniques differ, but they all have to hit those key steps.
Yeah.
Activate, mismatch, integrate.
The evidence is definitely pointing that way. There was a landmark case report, Vaz and Ecker, in 2020.
What did it show?
It detailed treating severe perfectionism, the kind rooted in complex trauma, really difficult stuff. By structuring the therapy explicitly around reconsolidation, they saw a near total disappearance of the perfectionism, the self-harm, and the changes stuck long-term.
That's incredible. It shows even seemingly impossible problems might have a pathway to resolution if you target the root memory.
It offers a lot of hope. But, and this is important, it's not quite as simple as just dredging up old memories. Ecker's very clear about nuances and pitfalls.
Right. Like what?
Well, one big one is that just activating the painful memory isn't enough. Some older forms of exposure therapy, for example, might just reactivate the fear over and over.
Without the mismatch.
Exactly. Without that vivid, disconfirming experience, the old schema just reconsolidates unchanged. It can even get stronger sometimes.
So just feeling the pain isn't the point. It has to be feeling the pain while simultaneously experiencing something that contradicts it. The timing is crucial.
Absolutely crucial. Have you ever seen that click for someone when the therapist just nails that juxtaposition?
It must be quite something to witness.
It really is. And another pitfall Ecker points out, jumping in with soothing or cognitive reframing too soon.
Too soon. Don't you want to make the person feel better?
You do, eventually. But if you soothe before the old emotional truth is fully felt and before the mismatch can land, you block the reconsolidation. The brain doesn't get the chance to see the contradiction clearly. It leads to temporary relief, maybe, but not lasting change.
So you have to let the difficult feeling emerge first.
Elicit the emotional truth of the symptom first. Let it be felt. Then introduce the novel contradictory experience and repeat that pairing. That sequence is vital.
Okay. And how do you know for sure it's worked? That it's a permanent shift?
Ecker suggests actively checking. Verify the transformation. Invite the client to, mentally revisit the old trigger. Does it still have that charge?
And if it doesn't?
If the old belief now feels null, as he puts it, or absurd, that's your indicator. It signals enduring erasure, not just suppression. The brain basically deleted the old emotional file.
This really changes how you think about different therapies, like EMDR, for instance. Eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. How does that fit in?
Yeah, EMDR is a great example. It's known for being really effective, especially with trauma, and the current understanding is that it works precisely through memory reconsolidation.
So its protocol naturally hits those 3 steps.
It seems to. The standard EMDR protocol involves intense reactivation of the traumatic memory. That's step 1.
Right, focusing on the image, thoughts, feelings, sensations.
Exactly. Then the bilateral stimulation, the eye movements or tapping, seems to help introduce and integrate new information. Things like the client's present safety, their adult strengths, or specific therapist comments called cognitive interweaves.
And that provides the mismatch, the contradictory experience.
That's the idea. The bilateral stimulation helps the brain process the trauma while holding on to this new, safer present reality, or the therapist